Okay, so if you've ever tried to look up the author Maggie Thrash, you might have run into a bit of a puzzle. It kind of feels like there are two of them, right? Well, in this explainer, we're going to clear that up for you. And not just that, we're diving deep into her amazing work. Everything from her award-winning graphic memoirs to a legal thriller that was, get this, 14 years in the making. So here's what we've got on tap. First up, we'll solve that whole name confusion. Then, we're going to jump into her huge breakout hit, Honor Girl, and track how she went from memoirs to novels. We'll also get into the absolutely wild 14-year saga behind her thriller, Rainbow Black. And to wrap it all up, we'll look at why Maggie Thrash is such an important voice in literature today. All right, first things first. Before we can really dig into Maggie Thrash's work, we've got to make sure we're all on the same page about who we're actually talking about. Because believe it or not, one little letter changes everything. Okay, so take a look at this. On the left, you've got Maggie Thrash. She's the one who writes graphic memoirs and thrillers, and she burst onto the scene in 2015. Now, over on the right, you have Maggie F. Thrasher. See that ER? She's a poet and an inspirational writer, and she's been publishing since back in the mid-90s. Totally different styles, totally different careers.
So, just so we're crystal clear, for the rest of our chat, we are only talking about Maggie Thrash, without the the author of Honor Girl and Rainbow Black. She's our focus. That's the name you want to lock in.
All right, so let's get into the book that really launched Maggie Thrash into the stratosphere. Back in 2015, she dropped her debut graphic memoir, Honor Girl. And wow, it just exploded. It was an instant critical sensation. So the whole story takes place at this fictional, very traditional all-girls summer camp called Camp Bellflower. And right there, surrounded by all the classic camp stuff, bonfires, crafts, the works, a 15-year-old Maggie falls hard for an older female counselor. And it's this incredibly intense, gut-wrenching first love. It's a classic coming-of-age tale for sure, but it's set against the very specific backdrop and pressure cooker environment of this isolated, all-girls world. And the critics, they just got it immediately. The New York Times Book Review nailed it when they called the book sweet and obsessive and dead-on. They loved how she used the comic format to tell the story. The verdict was pretty much unanimous. This wasn't just a decent story, it was absolutely brilliant storytelling. And then the awards just started rolling in. I mean, it was a finalist for the LA Times Book Prize, it got picked for the ALA's really important Rainbow Book List, and it got starred reviews from basically everyone who matters. Kirkus, Publishers Weekly, you name it. For a debut author to get that kind of universal praise, that almost never happens. It's incredibly rare. So what was it about this book that hit so hard with so many people? Well, I think it's because while the setting, a summer camp in Appalachia, is super specific, the feelings are completely universal. It taps right into that confusing, overwhelming, all-consuming feeling of a first crush and that struggle of trying to figure out who you are, especially when you get the sense that the world around you might not be ready for the real you. But here's the thing about Maggie Thrash. She was not about to be pigeonholed as just a graphic memoirist. Nope. What she did next showed she has incredible range and was really hungry to try new ways of telling stories.
You can really see her artistic journey laid out here. So after another hit graphic memoir in 2018, she switched gears and started writing YA novels, digging into friendship and mystery, and then bam! In 2024, she makes this massive leap with her first adult thriller, Rainbow Black. This is the path of an artist who is just not interested in staying in one box.
And if you're wondering how this evolution happened, a couple of things in her background are super telling. First, she wrote for Rookie magazine, which is where she really perfected that personal, easy-to-connect-with voice. And second, and this is a huge piece of the puzzle for what's coming, her dad is a federal judge. This gave her what she calls a legalistic lens, this deep, ingrained understanding of rules, procedure, and judgment that would become a massive influence on her fiction.
And yeah, that legalistic lens takes us straight to her biggest, most ambitious project to date, her 2024 adult debut, the thriller, Rainbow Black.
14. Just let that number sink in for a second, because that number is everything when it comes to understanding the sheer dedication behind this book. It's not just some random number. It stands for an unbelievable journey of creative grit and persistence. So what's the big deal with 14? It means it took 14 years. 14 years from the first idea to finally getting it published. The book went through at least 10 huge rewrites, and at one point she scrapped the entire manuscript, deleted the whole thing, and started over, saving only the main character and the setting.
This wasn't just a writing project. This was a full-blown obsession. And what she was trying to do, in her own words, was to create a legal thriller that blended the high drama you'd see in a movie with the meticulous procedure of a real-life courtroom. It's really the perfect marriage of her family background and her own artistic goals. And the book that came out of all that work is Rainbow Black. It's a thriller that dives into queer identity and media-fueled hysteria, all set during the satanic panic of the late 80s. You know, that time when public fear just went completely off the rails. And honestly, that theme feels more relevant than ever right now, doesn't it? With all the moral panics and misinformation that's spread like wildfire on social media.
Okay, so we've looked at her journey from Honor Girl all the way to Rainbow Black. So what's the bottom line here? What are the big themes? What makes Maggie Thrash an author we should all be paying attention to?
When you step back and look at all her work, you start to see these three big ideas that keep popping up. First, there's this theme of trying to figure out your identity while you're under a ton of pressure from the outside world. Second, she gives this really honest, unflinching look at queer self-discovery. And third, she's clearly fascinated by the drama of the legal system and how we judge each other in public.
And really, that's the common thread, right? That's what ties everything she writes together. It doesn't matter if it's a teenager at summer camp or someone on trial in a courtroom. Her stories are always about that intense battle between who we are on the inside, our true private selves, and the roles and expectations that society forces on us. So in the end, her work leaves you with this one powerful question that you just can't shake. What happens when your personal journey to find your own truth suddenly becomes a public spectacle put on trial for everyone to see? And wrestling with that question is what makes her books not just good, but absolutely essential.